Two organizations with almost nothing in common have quietly arrived at the exact same conclusion about food: FEMA and the Mormon Church. Different missions, different beliefs, different everything. And yet ask both what a family should have stored right now, and you get nearly the same list back. That did not happen by coincidence. Both spent decades studying the same problem. What does a family actually need when the food supply stops being reliable? And both landed on the same 12 answers. None of them are expensive. None are exotic. Most are already sitting in your grocery store for under $2. But the real reasons behind each choice are not what most people expect. And the food at number 1 does not just help you store food. It changes what preparedness means for a family entirely. 12 foods. The final 3 are where it gets really interesting. Number 12. Crackers. This is probably the most underestimated item on the entire list. And the reason it catches people off guard tells you something important about how most of us think about emergencies. FEMA does not recommend crackers because they are cheap. They recommend them because crackers solve a problem most households do not even know they have until they are already in the middle of it. In most real disruptions, the first challenge is not a shortage of food. It is the sudden inability to cook any of it. Think about your kitchen right now. Electric stove, electric microwave, electric toaster. The moment the power goes out, all of that is gone at once. And if it is dark, if conditions are uncertain, if roads are not safe, nobody wants to be digging out a camping stove they have not touched in 3 years. Crackers cut through that problem entirely. No heat, no water, no preparation. Open the package and you have food. A standard box of saltines holds well over 1,000 calories. But more importantly, it turns other shelf-stable foods into complete meals. Peanut butter by the spoonful feels heavy. Canned tuna straight from the can does not work for most people. Spread either one across a few crackers and you have carbohydrates, protein, and fat without a stove ever being involved. One thing worth knowing: crackers go stale faster than most dry goods, especially in heat or humidity. Keep them in a cool, dry spot. Rotate them regularly. Buy what your family already eats. The principle here applies to everything else on this list. A solid food storage plan needs items that can last 30 years, but it also needs items that can be eaten in 30 seconds. Crackers are the clearest example of that second requirement. The next item earns its place for a reason almost no food storage guide ever mentions, and it has nothing to do with nutrition. Number 11. Pasta. Most food storage guides focus heavily on what is nutritious. Almost none of them ask the more important question: will your family actually eat it? A 1-pound box of dry pasta costs $1 to $2 and gives you roughly 8 servings. The math alone is hard to argue with. But that is not really why pasta is on this list. What pasta does that almost no other stored food can replicate is create meals people genuinely want to sit down to. Kids recognize it. Adults have favorite versions of it. It carries a familiarity that equally affordable staples simply do not have. Here's what that difference actually looks like. A family is 5 days into a week-long power outage. They have rice, beans, canned protein, and vegetables. Everything they need from a nutritional standpoint. But the meals have started feeling identical. Same texture, same rhythm, same everything. Then someone opens a box of pasta with a jar of tomato sauce. Different texture, different aroma, different experience entirely. That shift matters more during an extended disruption than any calorie formula accounts for. Morale is a survival resource too, and it is one that most preparedness plans quietly ignore. Pasta also pairs with nearly everything else on this list: canned tuna, canned chicken, canned vegetables, olive oil, and dried herbs. Each combination gives you a genuinely different result, which is what prevents stored food from becoming something people start to dread. Dry pasta in a sealed package holds its quality for 2 to 3 years, sometimes longer, in a dry environment. The Mormon Church's food storage guidelines make a point that is worth remembering. Store the foods your family actually eats. On that basis, pasta may be one of the most honest items on this entire list. The next item is probably already in your kitchen. Most households have it, almost none have enough of it. That gap is the whole story. Number 10. Peanut butter. Ask most food storage experts which single item delivers the most value per dollar, and the answer comes back the same way almost every time. And it is sitting in the majority of American kitchens right now. A large jar of peanut butter holds close to 3,000 calories. Getting that same amount of energy from most other foods means spending significantly more or buying several different things. Peanut butter delivers it all in one container, but the calorie count is only part of it. Peanut butter gives you protein and fat at the same time. That combination creates sustained fullness in a way that carbohydrate-heavy foods alone do not. A meal that includes peanut butter tends to hold hunger back considerably longer, which means less total food consumed to stay satisfied. When supplies need to stretch, that matters in a real and practical way. The versatility adds another dimension. Spread on crackers, stirred into oatmeal, eaten with dried fruit, consumed straight from the jar when a full meal is not realistic. Peanut butter works in almost any context with no cooking, no refrigeration, and no preparation required. FEMA includes it because it solves several problems at once at low cost. One note when shopping: look for the shortest ingredient list you can find. Ideally, it reads peanuts and salt. Products that include corn syrup, added sugar, or hydrogenated oils have moved further from the food's natural nutritional value. Simpler label, better product. Before we move on, what food do you already have stored at home that you think most people overlook? Drop it in the comments. It is genuinely useful to hear what real households are actually doing. The next item gets written off as a basic budget breakfast. What most people miss is that it is also one of the most effective hunger management tools on this entire list. Number 9. Oats. A large canister of oats costs a few dollars and provides roughly 25 to 30 servings. The cost per meal, worked out honestly, often falls under 30 cents. Almost nothing else in the breakfast aisle comes close to that number. But the financial case for oats is actually the secondary argument. Many common morning choices, packaged cereals, toast, breakfast bars, produce a quick blood sugar rise followed by an equally quick crash. Hunger is back within a couple of hours. A mid-morning snack becomes necessary. Then another decision around lunch. Every extra eating occasion adds cost and consumption. Over weeks, that pattern compounds quietly. Oats work differently, and the reason is specific. They contain beta-glucan, a type of soluble fiber that has been extensively studied for its role in slowing digestion and sustaining fullness. A bowl of oatmeal at 7 in the morning tends to keep hunger at bay past 10, sometimes all the way to lunch, in a way most alternatives simply do not manage. The flexibility strengthens the case further. Oats pair naturally with several other items already on this list. A spoonful of peanut butter, a handful of raisins or dried apricots, a splash of powdered milk. Each addition makes the meal more complete without meaningfully raising the cost or the effort. For adults over 50, a reliable, filling breakfast tends to support steadier eating habits across the rest of the day. That is a health benefit and a budget benefit at the same time. The next item looks simple standing in the grocery aisle. There is a detail on the label that most people walk straight past, and missing it means you might be storing something much closer to candy than actual fruit. Number 8. Dried fruit. Fresh fruit is one of the most nutritionally valuable foods you can eat. It is also one of the first things that becomes unavailable when your normal routine gets disrupted. Bananas brown within days. Berries can turn in under a week. Even harder options like apples and oranges have a limited window before they need to be used or thrown out. Dried fruit addresses that problem directly. When most of the moisture is removed, fruit becomes shelf-stable for months, light enough to carry in an emergency kit, and compact enough to fit in a small container. Raisins, dried apricots, and dried cranberries are the most common choices because they are available, affordable, and familiar to most households. The nutritional contribution is real. Natural sugars for quick energy, vitamins that dry staples like rice, beans, and pasta simply do not supply in meaningful quantities, and a sweetness that makes otherwise monotonous stored meals significantly more tolerable. After several days of eating strictly from a shelf, that benefit matters more than it sounds. A handful of raisins stirred into a bowl of oatmeal, dried apricots alongside a small portion of nuts, Simple additions that create genuine variety and help people stay grounded during extended disruptions. Now here is the part most people walk straight past in the dried fruit aisle. A significant portion of commercially available dried fruit, particularly cranberries, mango slices, and pineapple chunks, contains substantial added sugar. In some products, the sugar content puts them closer to candy than fruit. For anyone managing blood sugar, or simply paying attention to what they are actually consuming, this is worth knowing before it goes into the cart. The best choices have the shortest ingredient lists, ideally just the fruit itself. If the label includes corn syrup, added cane sugar, or artificial coloring, that product belongs in a different category than its packaging suggests. Properly sealed and kept in a cool, dry spot, quality dried fruit lasts 6 months to over a year. The next item reveals the most consistent blind spot in first-time food storage builds. People stock carbohydrates. They stock protein. They step back feeling reasonably confident. And then, later, they notice what is missing. Number 7. Canned vegetables. There is a pattern that repeats itself almost every time someone builds a food storage supply for the first time. They stock rice. They stock pasta. They add crackers, oats, and peanut butter. Then some protein. They step back and feel like they have covered the basics. Weeks or months later, they notice the gap. No vegetables. Canned vegetables, green beans, corn, peas, carrots, typically cost $1 to $2 per can in most American supermarkets. For that price, a household gets fiber, vitamins, and minerals that none of the primary staples supply in useful amounts. For adults over 50, fiber intake already tends to fall below recommended levels as a baseline. When meals shift further toward dry goods and shelf-stable starches, that gap deepens. Canned vegetables address that directly and affordably. But the case goes beyond the nutrition label. A can of corn stirred into a pot of rice changes the entire character of the meal. Peas added to pasta introduce texture and color. Green beans alongside canned chicken produces something that genuinely feels like a plate of food rather than a survival ration. That distinction matters more during extended disruptions than most nutritional frameworks account for. People eat what feels real. When food stops feeling real, people start eating less of it. When shopping, look for low-sodium or no-salt added versions where available. If those are not an option, draining and rinsing the contents before use reduces sodium significantly. Many canned vegetables maintain their quality for 2 to 5 years in a properly sealed container stored somewhere cool and dry. One practical note: keep several different varieties rather than a large quantity of just one type. Green beans alone get old quickly. A rotation of corn, peas, carrots, and green beans creates real variety that makes stored meals actually livable over time. The next item usually sits forgotten at the back of the pantry. Then the power goes out for 3 days, and everything about how you see it changes. Number 6. Canned fruit. Most people would not put canned fruit anywhere near the top of a preparedness list. It sits quietly at the back of the shelf. It is not marketed as a health food. It rarely makes it into the cart without a specific reason. Then the power goes out. The bananas on the counter soften by day 2. The grapes lose their texture. The strawberries that were perfect 48 hours ago are no longer edible. Everything fresh, gone or going quickly. Meanwhile, the can of peaches on the pantry shelf is exactly where it was, unchanged. Ready. No electricity needed, no refrigeration, no decision required. That is the real value of canned fruit. Not that it outperforms fresh fruit, but that it is still there when fresh fruit is not. Food storage professionals consistently make a point worth sitting with. They do not think purely in calories. They think about balance maintained over time. A supply built entirely around rice, beans, and pasta provides enough energy for weeks. But after 10 or 12 days of eating nothing but dry starches, most people begin to strongly crave variety. A can of peaches or pineapple introduces a completely different flavor, texture, and sweetness into a meal that has otherwise become repetitive. That shift affects how much people eat and how well they function. Many canned fruits also retain meaningful levels of vitamin C and vitamin A, depending on the product. One deliberate choice worth making at the shelf: check how the fruit is packed. Juice or 100% fruit juice is meaningfully different from heavy syrup. That single label decision represents a significant difference in sugar intake across repeated servings. Canned fruit is not competing with fresh fruit. It is competing with the day when fresh fruit is simply not an option. On that basis, it earns its place. If this is landing differently than you expected, if this is making you look at your pantry differently, a like on this video genuinely helps more people find it. Takes 1 second and it means a lot. The next item surprises most people. Not because it is unexpected on a preparedness list, but because the actual reason it belongs here is almost never explained correctly. Number 5. Powdered milk. Most people assume powdered milk is a backup, a substitute for when fresh milk runs out. That framing misses the point. The reason powdered milk appears on both FEMA's list and in the Mormon Church's storage guidelines is not about convenience. It is about a nutritional gap that most food storage plans quietly contain, one that most people do not notice until it is already affecting them. When families prepare for emergencies, they tend to think in terms of calories and protein: rice for energy, beans for protein, pasta for flexibility. What consistently gets overlooked are the nutrients that none of those foods supply in meaningful amounts. Calcium, vitamin D, dairy protein. These nutrients support bone density, muscle maintenance, and nerve function, and those roles become more significant after 50, not less. A food storage plan that covers calories but leaves these nutrients unaddressed is not as complete as it appears on paper. Powdered milk closes that gap. The practical advantage becomes obvious the moment a power outage extends past a few hours. Fresh milk is typically one of the first things a household discards. Powdered milk requires no refrigeration at any stage. It can sit sealed on a shelf for months or years depending on the type and storage conditions. Instant dry milk dissolves more easily in water and works well for everyday use. Non-fat dry milk typically carries a longer shelf life and suits longer-term storage better. If rice and beans represent the foundation of a food storage plan, powdered milk represents one of the most important things most people forget to put alongside them. The next item addresses something that builds slowly and is rarely noticed until the effects have already accumulated. For adults over 50, this one deserves more attention than most people give it. Number 4. Canned meat. There is a change that happens gradually as people get older that most do not notice until it has been underway for years. Muscle mass quietly declines. The body becomes less efficient at processing protein than it was earlier in life. And the consequences: reduced strength, slower recovery from ordinary activity, a gradual loss of physical resilience, tend to show up most clearly in the decade after 50. This is the specific reason canned meat holds a distinct position on both lists. Canned tuna, salmon, chicken, and corned beef share something that separates them from most plant-based protein sources. They provide complete protein, meaning all of the essential amino acids the body needs to build and maintain muscle tissue. For older adults whose bodies are less capable of extracting what they need from incomplete protein sources, that distinction is clinically meaningful, not just nutritionally ideal. There is also the matter of vitamin B12, found in meaningful concentrations in most canned meat and fish. B12 supports nervous system health, cognitive function, and red blood cell production. Its deficiency becomes more common with age and is difficult to address through plant-based foods alone. From a practical standpoint, canned meat is among the most versatile things a pantry can hold. A can of tuna becomes lunch. A can of salmon combined with rice and whatever canned vegetable is available becomes a complete meal in a few minutes. A can of chicken can anchor several different dishes across multiple days without much effort at all. If canned fruit helps protect against vitamin shortfalls and canned vegetables provide fiber, canned meat ensures the stored food supply includes the quality of protein that supports real, sustained physical function over time. The next item costs about $1.50 per pound. Plain packaging, almost no marketing, and it may be the single most underestimated food on this entire list. Number 3. Dry beans and lentils. If someone described the following to you, most people would assume it was a financial product of some kind. Something that costs $1 to $2 per pound, delivers protein, fiber, and sustained energy in a single package. has been used as a dietary foundation by virtually every major civilization in recorded history, and when stored correctly, can remain viable for decades. The answer is a bag of dry beans. They sit on grocery store shelves in plain packaging, largely ignored. No aggressive marketing, no trend momentum driving them. And yet very few foods match what they offer across every dimension that matters for long-term food storage. Protein, fiber, caloric density, shelf stability, cost. On all five, beans sit at the top of the category. Research from Brigham Young University, which has conducted long-term food storage studies for decades, found that beans stored under proper conditions remained usable after several decades. That kind of longevity is almost without parallel in the food world. Takeout disappears in minutes. Fresh produce lasts days. Most packaged goods carry shelf lives measured in months. Properly stored dry beans can genuinely outlast careers. Most Americans already consume significantly less fiber than guidelines recommend. When meals shift towards stored staples built primarily on grains, that deficit deepens further. Beans directly counteract that pattern. A cup of cooked beans contributes a meaningful portion of a day's fiber intake while simultaneously providing protein that supports satiety. Lentils offer an additional practical advantage over many traditional bean varieties. They cook in 20 to 30 minutes and typically require no overnight soaking. When fuel or preparation time is limited, that speed becomes a genuine operational advantage rather than a minor convenience. Keeping several varieties, black beans, pinto beans, navy beans, lentils, creates real meal variety across an extended period. That variety matters considerably more than most people expect when they are actually living inside a disruption, rather than just planning for one from a comfortable distance. The next item is found in kitchens on virtually every continent. It has fed more people than almost any other food in human history. And in properly sealed storage, university research confirmed it can remain viable for more than 30 years. Number 2. White rice. Walk into a kitchen almost anywhere on Earth and there is a reasonable chance you will find it. Rice appears in the daily diet of more people than almost any other single food. It has sustained populations across Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa for thousands of years. It crossed cultural, geographic, and linguistic boundaries that separated civilizations for millennia. Foods that disappear tend to disappear because they have limitations. Rice has endured because it largely does not have many. Its value in a food storage context is not built on any single exceptional property. It is built on the combination. A 20-pound bag can often be purchased for under $20 and yields hundreds of individual servings. It is straightforward to prepare. It stores exceptionally well, and it pairs with nearly everything else on this list. Add beans and you have a nutritionally significant meal with complementary protein profiles. Add canned fish or chicken and you have complete protein alongside a complex carbohydrate. Add canned vegetables and you gain fiber, color, and micronutrients alongside sustained energy. Rice does not compete with those foods, it anchors them. Research from Brigham Young University found that properly packaged white rice retained its usability after more than 30 years in appropriate storage conditions. 30 years, decades of technological, economic, and social change, and a sealed bag of white rice remains ready to become a meal. For a food that costs fractions of a cent per serving, that level of stability is genuinely difficult to overstate. The final item is in a different category from everything else on this list. Every other item here is a food. This one is something more than that. And understanding the difference is the whole point of this video. Number 1. Whole wheat berries. Every other item on this list is a food. This one is a system. Walk through the center aisles of any modern supermarket. Bread in dozens of forms, crackers across multiple shelves, pasta in every shape, breakfast cereals filling entire sections, pancake mixes, flour tortillas, biscuit mixes, hundreds of baked and processed products of every kind. Read a few of those ingredient labels. Most of them begin with the same source material: wheat. Whole wheat berries are simply wheat in its intact, unprocessed grain form. From a single bag, a household can produce bread, tortillas, crackers, pancakes, hot cereal, and porridge. All of it from one ingredient. That is not a small thing. That is a fundamentally different level of capability. And that is precisely what separates wheat berries from everything else on this list. Not caloric content, not nutritional profile, though both are genuinely meaningful. What separates them is that they are not merely a food. They are the raw material from which food is made. That distinction has an implication worth sitting with for a moment. During significant supply disruptions, major storms, extended regional emergencies, large-scale economic shocks, the first products to disappear from store shelves are not raw ingredients. They are finished goods. Bread disappears before flour, crackers before grain, packaged cereals before oats. The household that has whole wheat berries stored does not depend on whether finished products are available on shelves. It can produce its own from scratch. That is the philosophy behind why the Mormon Church places wheat berries at the center of its long-term storage guidelines. The goal is not simply to have enough food to survive. It is to maintain the capacity to function independently, to create meals rather than simply consume them, to remain genuinely self-reliant rather than dependent on what happens to be left on a store shelf. Research from Brigham Young University confirmed that properly stored wheat berries remain viable and nutritionally intact after more than 30 years. Think about what that means practically. Decades of change in technology, economy, politics, and daily life, and the wheat is still there, still capable of becoming a meal for your family. One practical note worth being honest about: whole wheat berries require a grain mill to be ground into flour. Manual mills are available at a range of price points, and electric options exist as well. For households new to this level of preparation, that is a real and legitimate barrier. But even a modest investment in the right equipment transforms a bag of wheat berries from shelf inventory into genuine food production capacity. The difference between having stored food and being able to make food is significant. Wheat berries represent the second category. That is why both FEMA and the Mormon Church, arriving from entirely different directions, with entirely different missions, converge on the same conclusion. The most resilient household is not the one with the most food stockpiled. It is the one that can create food regardless of what is happening outside the front door. After going through all 12, a pattern becomes clear that is easy to miss when looking at any single item on its own. None of these foods are expensive. None require specialty sourcing or unusual expertise. Every single one is available in a standard American grocery store, often in the same aisle you move through every week without a second thought. What both FEMA and the Mormon Church understand, and what both organizations have communicated through these recommendations for decades, is that preparedness is not about bracing for catastrophe. It is about recognizing that disruptions are a normal part of life. Prices change. Supply chains get interrupted. Storms arrive. Circumstances shift in ways that are largely outside any family's control. The household that has a few weeks of these 12 foods stored correctly has not prepared for the worst-case scenario. It has simply removed a specific category of vulnerability from everyday life. When a storm arrives, there is no scramble to a grocery store that may already be sold out. When prices spike, there is time to wait rather than being forced to buy at peak cost. When a disruption lasts longer than expected, there are options available that most nearby households simply do not have. Adding one item per week at the pace of a regular grocery run builds a meaningful supply within a few months. Without pressure, without a large upfront cost, and without turning preparedness into a project that feels overwhelming. And over time, quietly and without drama, a pantry becomes something more than a place where food waits to be used. It becomes a resource. Which of these 12 surprised you the most? And which one are you going to pick up first? Tell me in the comments. I read every one.